There's a deer. I hear a deer. Oh, it's just Uncle Casey. We're in the town of Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, and it was established in 1750, but it wasn't really called Mercersburg till later. Before the Revolutionary War, it was quite a sleepy town, but afterwards it started to grow, and the town Mercersburg was named after General Mercer, who was a Scottish immigrant of the Revolutionary War. And after the war, all the homes down Main Street, you're looking down Main Street here, they're all pretty much made of wood and logs. And it wasn't until the Georgian movement of architecture where they started building all the brick homes that you'll see lined up on the street today. Now, Jacob Hassler is our 4 times great-grandfather, and he was an architect and a carpenter in this town. He moved here in 1815 and he died in 1848. But between those that 33-year time span, he is said to have built more than half of the homes in this town. And a couple churches as well. He had 20 apprentices, and his work went all the way down to the Potomac. So we're going to take a look at some of these homes, and hopefully we can find some by Jacob Hassler, our 4 times great-grandfather. And this here is James Buchanan, and he's our 15th president, and he was born in Mercersburg. This is the first house on Main Street on the north side at 5 North Main Street. And this is the McKinstry residence of Jacob and William McKinstry. They're very good friends and devout members of the Reformed Church, and also helped establish the Marshall College. William McKinstry was a native of Belfast, and he came to Mercersburg around 1796, where he started his life as a clerk in a general store. And he purchased a store from James Buchanan Sr., who's the father of James Buchanan, our 15th responsible president. For publishing the town's first newspaper, the Visitar, which is now called the Mercersburg Journal. So this house was built in 1810 of Georgian architectural influence. This is called the Mansion House, built around 1790. Italian-style mansion house was used by Marshall College from 1840 to 1845. So it's likely that Peter Cornelius Prue, while he was here in 1844, visited this house during his studies at Marshall College. Now this home is on 11 North Main Street. This home was built by Jacob Hassler, our 4 times great-grandfather, in 1847. It belongs to Judge James Oliver Carson. And the brick building replaced 2 log cabins which previously occupied the territory. There's unique eyebrows, they call them, in the attic that are typical of the Greek Revival style. And this house had the first bake oven in This town. Is the Lane House on 14 North Main Street, built by Jacob Hassler in 1828. And the owner, Thomas Lane. So this house is in the historic district of Mercersburg. And it's a 2.5-story, 5-bay brick building house in the Federal style. Many distinguishing features, including elaborately carved woodwork and a curved ceiling in the hallway. It's registered on the National Register of Historic Places. So the home was built by Jacob Hassler and Thomas Lane. When Thomas died, he gave it to his brother, Elliot. And Elliot married the sister of James Buchanan. So their daughter, known as the First Lady, when James Buchanan became president, because James Buchanan was never married. So this became the home of Harriet Lane, who was the niece of James Buchanan, our 15th This is called president. The Steiger House, and is built entirely top to bottom by our 4 times great-grandfather, Jacob Hassler. Now he sold it, he built it in 1836, he sold it to Mrs. Maris, and afterwards is bought by William Waddell. Today it serves as a bed and breakfast, and it's a true regal delight. So this 5,138 square foot house has 7 bedrooms and 5.5 baths. There are 4 guest quarters, all with private baths, wooden floors throughout, kitchen, fireplace, butler staircase, and a 3-car garage. A full bed and breakfast, or full breakfast, is offered to guests each morning Handmade and antique furnishings provide comfortable surroundings. There are common rooms on the first floor for relaxation, reading, television, or simply friendly conversations with the other guests. There is complimentary wine, tea, and coffee also provided. So I'm not really quite sure why it's called the Steiger House, but the Steiger family is very influential throughout all the 1700s and the early 1800s. And you find their homes and their headstones all across
Now, Jacob
this town.
Hassler, who was the carpenter who built all these homes, was married to Elizabeth Kiefer. And the Kiefers came from Upper Strasbourg, and still in Mercersburg are lots of Kiefers. These are little brick monuments of the Kiefers. And you'll find them here, and you'll find them over here, and even Randall Kiefer. And over here we have Ruth Kiefer, and we have Ralph Kiefer. So we have a lot of Kiefers in Mercersburg. So we're standing at the corner of Fayette and Orange, and in 1835, this is where Jacob Hassler and his wife Elizabeth Kiefer moved after they had their children. And all the children were raised later in this home. So we're not sure which home exactly he had, but it certainly would have been a Georgian-style home of 1835. This looks like a very likely candidate based on the homes he was building at the time. And perhaps this one here was likely candidate. But the Hassler home is just a stone's throw from Marshall College, and the boys at Marshall College would always visit the Hassler home because he had very pretty daughters. And this is where Peter Cornelius Prue, our 3 times great-grandfather, met Charlotte Hassler. And they got married in 1852 and moved on to Xenia, Ohio. And they lived right next to the Reformed Church, Jacob and Elizabeth did, where they were buried, and Jacob died in 1848 and Elizabeth died 1856. This is the old Reformed Church cemetery right at the end of Fayette, at the cross street of Fayette and Orange. And this is right behind the home of Jacob and Elizabeth when they built their new home in 1835. So originally Jacob and Elizabeth were buried here, and later on in 1866 their bodies were moved up to Fairview Cemetery on the current Mercersburg Academy campus under the chimes of the old cathedral. And we haven't found their headstones in either location, but that's a story of Jacob Hassler and his wife, Elizabeth Kiefer, our 4 times great-grandparents.